probably killed a 9-year-old boy. So I was just at the Alice in Chains and Korn concert, and as you would imagine, from two living rock legends, it was phenomenal. I didn't think I would ever get a chance to see them again. I saw Korn years and years ago, back in the day when they were touring with Disturbed at smaller venues. In this case, they were at an amphitheater, but before it was at one of my old alma maters. They called it the Mac Center, which I forget what the acronym stands for. Everyone lives and dies on acronyms nowadays. But regardless, from what I remember, that was amazing. But what I saw at this concert was unreal. When I got there, there was a group up there called Horror, I believe. They put like a bunch of nines in the name. And they were really good. They brought a lot of energy. Didn't really have a problem with them, but it was weird because they played a lot of synth and like backing tracks. They didn't have a guitarist. They didn't have a bassist. They had a live drummer, which was really cool, which kept everyone engaged. And it was two vocalists. One guy that was more of a DJ, but then he came out and did some duetting with the other guy. And they really brought the energy. Like, they really set the stage for what was to come. But it was a little confusing at the same time because you're expecting these bigger bands and it's a rock concert, and it felt almost like hip hop, but it wasn't. It definitely had that metal edge to it, and they were dope, just a little strange. But after them was Underoath. Now, I've seen these guys a couple times at other festivals, and not a big fan of their music. Like, I don't go out of my way to download and get their songs through Spotify or any of that. But as a live show, I mean, that lead singer, he was all over the place. He was great. And I remember their one guitarist. He was kind of like me, a portly man, but he really worked it. And there was this guy, he was doing their synth. I just remember the amount of energy he had, and I was like, you know what, if I saw him in real life, he looked like an office manager at like some computer firm. He had like cool hair, but it was like thrown off to the side, but you know that like in his professional life, he probably has to comb it over. But he was rocking hard on that synth. And honestly, I couldn't stop looking at that guy. Like the guitarist, the bassist, oh man, if I remember correctly, the bassist and the second guitar, they were fit dudes. Like, whew, like you could tell he spent a lot of time at the gym, or maybe that bass is just really heavy and he's just got really big bass muscles. But either way, they were really good. They got the crowd pumped up, but obviously all hell broke loose when Alice in Chains came out. I wasn't expecting much from the crowd as far as I was expecting interaction in the sense of like everyone knew the songs, which everyone seemed to know at least 60% of the songs. So it was just one big sing along, and the newer, I should say, he's not really new, but the main vocalist, he knew everyone knew his stuff, and he would turn the mic to us every once in a while, and everyone get a pipe in. But the crowd, it defied what I was expecting. There was a big mosh pit that opened up by their third song, and it stayed open for the majority of their set. And bodies were flying. I was standing behind a family, and I don't know if it's wise. I mean, it's cool that they brought their two younger children there. They were two boys, and they had to be like, I don't know, one had to be like 9 or 10, the other one maybe 12. And the dad was a little bit shorter than me, and I am by no means a tall dude, and the mom just, she was a little bit shorter than that guy. I'm like, they're right up almost on the barrier. I think there was a group of guys on the barrier, that family, me. I was maybe 4 people away from the barrier. And when Alice in Chains got up there and that pit opened up and people started getting pushed around, I remember a body slammed into the back of my head. I was like, oh, there's a crowd surfer. It's a little bit early for that, but that's cool. I'm always down for crowd surfers. So I remember holding and trying to support them and push them in a different direction because I did not want them to end up on top of these poor kids. And thankfully, the guys that were around me were of the same mindset. So we would always try and push the crowd surfers either to the left or to the right. But there was one instance, I hate to say it, where a heavy dude decided to get chucked up, and he kind of went over my head a little bit, smacked the father and the mom in the back of the head, and I'm pretty sure he took out and probably killed a 9-year-old boy. The verdict's still out there. Hopefully he's okay. And he's okay. I saw him a few minutes later. But that family became like a fortress. They were bawling. They refused to move from that spot, even for endangerment of their children, because I think they were there for Korn because the dad had like a Slayer shirt. He looked a little bit like hardcore, and the kids, I forget what the shirt was, but you could tell like even these kids are into some heavier stuff. So you could tell that they were waiting around for Korn, and they weren't budging, even though they just got decimated by some fat ass and fucking cutoffs. It took the entire family out, but you know, the family that bruises together stays together, I guess. The one thing during the Alice in Chains set that did bother me a little bit, there was this older guy and girl, probably in their mid to late 60s. At first I thought they were trying to like get out of the crowd to use the bathroom, because at that age, let's face it, your bladder isn't what it used to be, and it probably had to go, and they're like, oh man, we should probably relieve ourselves before we see our cool band. And so I let them through, and what I didn't realize was they started moving up towards the barrier, and they got maybe 3 people away from me, from my right, and then all I heard was just a bunch of people screaming at them. I'm like, huh? And then they got pushed back towards me. I'm like, what? And I'm not a violent dude. There was a little bit of space. I didn't really move. He kind of ended up in front of me, like to my right, and his girl was in front of him. So he got a really good spot for not hanging out as early as the rest of us. So that was kind of annoying, but hey, what are you going to do? And old guys, aside from bladder control issues and any number of ED issues and other medical things that are even grosser, they seem to lose their sense of space. I don't know if it was because this guy was fucking drunk or what, but I was there chilling. I kind of respect the people around me. Like, I'll do my motions, jump up and down, pump fists, sing along. This guy was singing at the top of his voice, which is fine. That's what you're supposed to do. It's a live rock concert. No one, I mean, the speakers are going to overpower you anyway. But for some reason, he thought it was a great idea to constantly bend his head backwards. And he had this, like, long blonde hair, obviously dyed, because at his age, there's going to be a lot more salt in there. But anyway, his dyed flowing locks kept whipping me in the face. And I'm like, he just doesn't have a sense of that space. But then he would also kind of do like a weird humping motion to his girlfriend and lean his head back. And at one point, he almost was resting his head on my shoulder. And he kept doing it. So after a while, I would actually push his back up a little bit. And at one point, he turned to me. I'm like, dude, watch your head. And he's like, oh, it's a rock concert. I'm like, all right, yeah, well, welcome to a rock concert. And remember how I said that by the third song, a mosh pit had opened up? Well, I was at the edge of the mosh pit, but so was he. And there were a couple times where people bounced off of me. I pushed them back. It's all in good fun. But there were a couple times where I got squished a little to the side, and I was no longer this guy's barrier. And he got taken out. Dude came flying, bounced off of him, and the look on his face was great. From that point on, he was more looking over his shoulder, and he kind of kept more to himself, but he did get hit a few times. And it's like, well, what do you expect? It's what you get for being a dick. But beyond that, the Alice in Chains set was amazing. Check my brain. is live is probably my favorite song that they did live. I mean, sure, you've got all the classics. And that's another thing. People that think that by screaming constantly the one song that they want heard, that's kind of like the deep cut, they're not hearing you. No matter how, like, I was 4 away from the front. Those guys weren't hearing me at all. So I don't know where this idea of, like, oh, if I keep screaming the same name, same song, they're going to play it. Nah, you could wish all day, but, I mean, unless you got Tinkerbell granting you a couple of extra, moments of fairy dust to get some shit going, it's not going to happen. So calm the fuck down. But beyond that, amazing. And then, of course, Korn. Oh, Jesus. So that pit that was open up for most of Alice in Chains, when Korn came out, it went bananas. Just bodies going left and right. And that family that was right in front of me, they got huddled even more together, and they were just aggressive. Like, I remember one body came flying over my head. It landed near the father, and the father, with all of his adrenaline and might and I don't know, let's protect the children muscles, he ended up chucking the dude over the next group of people that were in front of him, the people that were on the barrier. And the dude landed sideways on the bouncer. Like, the bouncer caught him in midair. It was pretty something. That dude's, kudos to that guy. And I bet you his kids are going to be tough as shit. And at that stage, the old couple, they were gone. You could tell, like, they were not going to survive if they were still there. The guys that were around me, though, were really cool. There was this one dude that kept on drinking wine. He somehow smuggled in a whole big bottle of wine, and he shared it with a couple people, but he was pretty much gone. During the Alice in Chains set, he was doing some weird stuff, but for Korn, he was also near a barrier where a pit opened up, and there were these two guys, they're nerds like me, they don't seem like anything crazy, they just like music, and they were pretty much being the barrier to him. He was right in front of them, and they were bouncing guys off and, just deflecting them because they also knew that there were kids in front of them and stuff. And after a while, you get hit, you get pushed up. You constantly are hitting the guy in front of you by accident, but it's nothing personal. It's just, we need to survive against the moshers. And this guy, for some reason, just got upset and started throwing elbows and started smacking the two guys behind him that were essentially protecting him. He did this for like 2 minutes. And he smacked the one kid in the face like 3 times with his elbow. And the kid was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And after a while, his girlfriend, wife, I don't know, mistress, whatever the fuck that was, had to be like, you gotta calm down. Calm down. They're trying to help you. And he didn't seem to know what the fuck was going on. So eventually he actually ended up, because they moved away from him, and he ended up in the middle of a mosh pit. And he must have started throwing some punches, because out of the blue, I saw everyone just pointing to this dumbass. And the bouncer had to come over. He started flashing his light at him, and they're all yelling at him like, oh, he punched this dude and this guy. And so the bouncer just ejected his ass, which is great because he was just throwing elbows because he didn't know who to throw elbows to. The other thing was, for Alice in Chains, there was this one chick that was behind me, and let's just call her Bra, because she was wearing a fishnet top and a bra that lit up and shoes that lit up. She was pretty cool, but she ended up crowd surfing like 2 times during Alice in Chains, and during the Korn set, you saw, like, you knew it was her, because all you would see were her feet, which were lit up, and her bra, which was also lit up, just constantly surfing. She probably did it at least 6 or 7 times. And I have a feeling if you left her to her devices, she would have just kept on doing that. But for Korn set, because everyone was moshing during Alice in Chains, you could tell after song number 3 or 4, that crowd was tired. So they were kind of run ragged at that point. And it was weird because Korn's set was a lot calmer than Alice in Chains, if you can believe that, until they broke out Freak on a Leash. When Freak on a Leash came out, they found like that second wind, kind of like Rocky Balboa finding it when he was fighting Apollo Creed. I don't know, 1, 2, or 3. one of the times, and they just went completely ape. Bodies were going everywhere. Pits were opening up. It was fantastic. I always dig that. Just the amount of energy that comes from the people, the music. It was so worth it. And I don't know. That's pretty much it. When it's all said and done, it's a shame that it has to stop. But they got to move on to a different city, and we've got to move on with our lives and just have these memories. But yeah, that was my experience at the Korn and Alice in Chains concert. Hopefully they come by you. I never thought I would see Alice in Chains live in my life. So if the chance ever arises, it's definitely worth the effort, time, and the few bruises and watching the death of a family.